All right, how's everyone doing tonight?
Good.
Good? Awesome.
That's my dad's name.
What?
Daniel.
Daniel? Okay, well, we're about to learn about Daniel, and not only Daniel, but lions.
Yes, my
Daniel
favorite.
and the lions, to be precise.
My favorite.
Good story.
animal.
Good story. Pay attention. I have a lot to cover, but I'm going to try and not bore you guys. So here's the setting, okay? It takes place in a nation called Babylon, all right? Daniel 1:1. In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, all right, I don't know how to, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, okay? We're just going to, right here, Nebuchadnezzar, we're just going to call him Old Neb, all right? Old Neb. King of Babylon came to Jerusalem and besieged it, okay? So Old Neb here came to Jerusalem, besieged it, all right? He's the king of Babylon, all right? So I guess the setting would be Jerusalem. So Old Neb here, Nebuchadnezzar, sends for capable men. Daniel 1:37. The king, Nebuchadnezzar, ordered his chief of court officials to go out and find among the Israelites men without physical defect, handsome and smart. So he wanted his court officials to go find him some men that were capable of doing labor, they were smart, they were handsome, to help be representatives of his court, basically. Among those chosen were from Judah. First one named Daniel, second Hananiah, third Mishael, and Azariah. Now the chief official gave them new names, all right? So here's where things might get confusing, but don't worry too much about it. So Daniel was then called Belteshazzar, to Hananiah, Shadrach, to Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah, Abednego. Now, who remembers the song that Pastor Phil sings about Meshach, Shadrach, and old Abednego? And he's like, nah, nah, nah. Remember? Well, they're still in the fire.
I didn't see it.
Anyone? Nobody remembers that? So that's where these names come from, all right? They were here with Daniel out of Jerusalem here. So now here's where things get interesting. The king has a dream, okay? Daniel 2, verses 1 through 3. In the second year of his reign, old Nebuchadnezzar, had dreams. His mind was troubled and he could not sleep. So the king summoned magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers to tell him what he had dreamed and to interpret his dream. So not only did he want his enchanters, magicians of the land to tell him what he dreamed, he wanted them to also interpret. So after a back and forth, all of his little magicians and enchanters and everything basically tell him it's impossible. No man can tell you what you have dreamed, because no man can reveal those secrets. So at this, old Neb, the king, he gets angry. So instead, he threatens to go out and kill all the wise men instead, all the sorcerers and stuff like that, because he was furious that they told him that nobody could interpret his dream. But when Daniel heard about this, when Daniel heard that the king wanted to get rid of all the wise men, what he did is one night, him and the other three, they had like a prayer night, and they were praying to God, and God actually revealed to Daniel not only the king's dream, but what it meant. So Daniel, after that, after God reveals what his dream is, because there's only one person that can reveal mysteries and dreams and stuff, and that's God. So when Daniel was praying to God, and he was stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's either God can help him interpret this, or him and all the other wise men are just going to be put to death. So God reveals the king's dream, and not only does he reveal what the king dreamed, so he saw his dream, but then he also told him what it meant, okay? So then Daniel goes to the king and reveals the dream and interprets. Daniel 2, verses 31 to 35. So this is Daniel talking to the king. And you can look at this statue right here as I go along because it coincides with what's happening here. So Daniel saying to the king, "Your majesty looked, and there before you," this is his dream, "and there before you stood a large statue, an enormous, dazzling statue, awesome in appearance. The head of the statue was made of pure gold," see? "Its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet partly of iron and partly of baked clay." He continues, "While you were watching, a rock was cut out, but not by human hands, and it struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and smashed them. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, the gold, all of it was broken into pieces and swept away by the wind without a trace. But the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain and filled the whole earth." Now I'm going to spoil some things for you. Does anyone know a nickname that we give Jesus and why he's a firm foundation? Sometimes we say Jesus is our
Savior.
what just struck this? Rock. Jesus is our rock. So when I was studying this, and the book of Daniel, it also coincides with Ezekiel and the book of Revelations, and it's kind of neat how this all ties together. But this rock that the king had dreamed is actually eventually going to turn out to be a symbol for Jesus coming in the future and laying all of the kingdoms down, and Jesus becoming this mountain to fill the whole earth. Because when Jesus comes back for good, he's going to rule the whole earth peacefully, right? So this is what the rock meant, but we won't, that's for a different study time, which I'm really into all that. So now we go a few kings later. So Nebuchadnezzar has a son, his son has a son, and then this guy, King Darius of the Medes, comes over and took reign over Babylon. So now this guy is in charge, King Darius, and appointed administrators. And what administrators are these people are in charge of issues for the kingdom that the king can count on to get done. So Daniel was one of these administrators, okay? But others in charge were jealous of him because Daniel was favored. Why? Because Daniel was so loyal and faithful to God. God made him fruitful, right? God made him fortuitous. Okay, so he was successful. Okay, made Daniel successful. All these other administrators were jealous of him. So these people started plotting against Daniel, and they all agreed that the king should issue a decree that anyone who prays to any god or human within the next 30 days, except praying to the king, shall be thrown to the lion's den. All right, this is where the lion's den comes in. Okay, so these guys, we got Daniel over here, he's doing his own thing, he's being good, he's praying to God, and God's on his side. But these guys, they're scheming over here, and we're like, look at this guy. He thinks he's better than us because he's got favor and all this stuff. Why don't we go tell the king that if anyone prays to any god or other human being besides the king, they'd be thrown into the lion's den, and then we'll be free of this guy. And then we can be the big shots. Okay, that's the whole point. So here we go. Daniel 6, verses 19 to 24. Actually, real quick, before that, okay, the king gets really concerned about this, right? King Darius, because King Darius also took a liking to Daniel, okay? So what had happened was these guys plotted to do this. They said, "King, if anyone prays to any god or any other human being besides you in the next 30 days, be thrown into the lion's den." And at first, King Darius is like, "Okay, that sounds good. All right, we'll do that." But then these people were walking by, I believe Daniel's home, saw him praying to God, right? So then what they did is they run back to the king and they say, "Guess what I found Daniel doing, king? Praying to God and not you." Now, King Darius liked Daniel, so this concerned him real bad, so he was stuck. He was like, "Well, I just issued this decree and I got to follow it, but at the same time, I don't want to get rid of Daniel because he's helped me out too." So, King Darius was tossing and turning all night, barely got any sleep, and right here at Daniel 6, verses 19 to 24, at first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried into the lion's den. Because Daniel was in the lion's den at this point, okay? When he came near the den, he called out to Daniel, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God been able to rescue you from the lions? Then, what happens? Who's this? Daniel. Where is he at?
In the lion's den.
Lion's den, right? And this is what it would basically look like. You got walls on all sides. You ain't getting out of there. You thrown in there, you got to get help to get back out.
I knew.
Daniel answered, my God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight. Nor have I ever done any wrong before you, your majesty. So Daniel was pulled out of the lion's den without any wounds on him, because he had trusted in his God. At the king's command, the men who falsely accused Daniel were thrown into the lion's den, and before they could even reach the floor of the den, the lions overpowered and crushed them. So basically, Daniel was innocent because God protected him and he knew he was innocent, and therefore King Darius saw that he was innocent because God sent an angel to protect him in that moment. Because why? Daniel never lost faith in God. There's a running theme here between when I taught Joseph. I don't know if you guys ever remember me teaching Joseph way back when, but he believed in God the whole time, and he came up from being sold to the Egyptians to being Pharaoh's right-hand man. Then last week it was David having faith in God, and what happened with that? God helped David slay that giant, right, with a single stone. And now Daniel had faith in God enough to look these lions in the face and have nothing happen to him. So imagine that. You think at some point he kind of like cuddled up to the lions like a cat or something and was just, laying there? That'd be kind of scary still.
Oh.
So summary right here. So basically I'm going to try and tie all this in. Daniel, much like Joseph and David, who I was just talking about, was given a seat of honor among the people for his faith in God and staying loyal to him. Who? God. Staying loyal to God. Even though Daniel was persecuted and falsely accused, he never lost faith in that God would protect him. God rewarded Daniel's faith, okay, by keeping him alive. And therefore he was brought out of the den. Obviously the king saw that he was innocent, and he's still favored by God and all this, so I'm sure he went on to receive riches and favor and all that other stuff. So now I got 3 questions for you, and one of them I'd like to see if you guys remember from any of these past ones. I want to try and start tying some of these lessons in to see if you guys can retain anything from maybe the previous one. So question number 1, how did Daniel gain honor and treasures from King Nebuchadnezzar, Old Neb? How did Daniel gain honor and treasures from the first king? What did he do to impress the king? Remember what Old Neb wanted to do or needed? Old Neb was trying to look for somebody to... Right here.
Sebastian.
Yeah, Sebastian.
Like he wanted to protect
Well, in a sense, it did protect him, but no, I'm looking for something very specific right here. What did Daniel do for King Nebuchadnezzar to gain his favor when none of his magicians or sorcerers or anyone else could tell him what he was trying to ask? Yes, Lo.
He told the king what his dream was about.
Exactly. He told the king what his dream was, and not only that, he interpreted it when nobody else could. Second question, okay? And this is where that memory's got to come into play. Okay? And I know this was a long time ago, but I kind of just brushed over it if you guys were paying attention. Who else that we've studied can interpret dreams? I said 3 names. that tied these together. I said Joseph, David, and now Daniel. We just found out Daniel can interpret dreams because God revealed those mysteries. David, when he was slaying the giant, did that have anything to do with dreams? So now Joseph with going to the Pharaoh. After his brothers sold him to the Egyptians, he came up to be Pharaoh's right-hand man because what did Joseph do for Pharaoh?
I forgot.
Who else that we've studied can interpret dreams? There's only two here. Daniel and Joseph. Yep, Sebastian gets that. Good job. Joseph, I know it's been a while, but he also interpreted a dream for Pharaoh. And actually, Lily was actually surprised me on the way over here because she told me what the dream was. What was the dream? The Pharaoh had seven
skinny cows and 7 fat cows on this wooden little bridge. And then the skinny cows ate the fat cows.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
That surprised me.
That's good.
On the way over here, I was like,
Surprised
how'd you know that? Well, it's that Beginner's Bible show, so that was pretty cool. So last question right here. How did Daniel, Joseph, and David each overcome their challenges? They all have one theme in common. How did each one of them overcome what they had to deal with, Lexi? They prayed to God. They had faith in God. They prayed to Him, and they knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that God would get them out of there. Okay? They didn't say, Daniel didn't get into the lion and say, "Oh no, God, why did you do this to me?" Blah, blah. No, he prayed to God, and he never lost faith. And what did God do? Send an angel to close the lion's mouths. Joseph, even after his brothers betrayed him, sold him to the Egyptians, he had a hard life, but since God favored him, he moved up in rank and finally became the Pharaoh's right-hand man because he never lost faith in God. And then David, last week with Goliath, he boldly fought that giant, not because he felt that he had to or had something to prove, but he not only wanted to help his brothers that were in Saul's army at the time, but he had heard all the stuff that Goliath was yelling and blah, blah, blah. But he also had faith in God, and God helped him overcome that giant with a single stone. So that really lets you know how powerful God can be when He's helping someone. If He can take a single stone and that being slung at a giant's forehead and he's just done, that's really powerful.
That was probably the secret spot.
Oh. And then that's it. Any questions? Anything you want to know? Yes,
I
Lord.
wanted to say something. That was probably the secret spot people had to get.
What was that?
Talking about Goliath's forehead.
That was probably the secret spot people didn't know.
Well, he hit him in the forehead, and it hit him with such force because God helped Daniel accomplish that. So it's not just he got lucky and hit a spot. It's just God helped him. He slung that one stone. Remember, he got 5 stones from the river, and he only needed 1. Any questions yet?
What did the angel use to close the lion's mouth?
Okay, well, in the passage it doesn't really state, but in the Bible it does say that angels have like superhuman strength, and they're really smart and fast, and it's basically like if you took all the superheroes and combined them, and probably then some, those are God's angels, and then obviously God's even more than that because He's able to create angels like that. So just to give you an example, when Jesus was in the tomb, okay, and they had these giant stone wheels that they would roll in front of these tombs, right? You would have to have like several men move these. But when Jesus rose from the grave, that there was just one angel that came to that tomb and rolled the stone away by himself. So that one angel rolled the stone that usually takes like several men to move. Just to give you an example of how strong angels can be. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you all learned something, and have a good night.